In 1825, Giuseppe Maria Berardo, 26th Pharaoh e Pharaoh, in his Guida per gli Stranieri in Trapani thus writes, "The entrance to this port is one of the most pleasant, is also animated by a significant number of small boats intended for fishing, and by small liudels trading with neighboring populations. They all fly over the surface of the waters, offering continuously among the ships the most pleasant scenes. A confused mass of ships, of sailors, of craftsmen, and shopkeepers, stirred by a rapid movement enliven the whole length of this Lido. The sea determined the economic development of the entire Trapani area. In the 18th century, we were a point of reference in the Mediterranean for salt, red tuna, marsala wine, the production of pasta factories, cotton, sumac, timber, Petri tagliati a cantuna, and also for the craftsmanship of talented master coral workers and silversmiths. The ports of the Trapani area implement a historical intertwining of man, sea, economy and culture that allows the development and refinement of societal forms and work organizations. The deputation of bridge and wharf controls the movement of vessels, human resources and goods, collects the anchorage tax, takes care of customs and sanitary services, the management of the seabed and the roadsteads, and determines the location of vessels throughout the port. Thus the Buzzi San Petrara, or Nasili, are pulled ashore in the key area between the Porta dei Pescatori and the Porta Golli. The large vessels stop in the area between the Porta dei Pescatori and the Bastione della Dogana. Merchant and war ships are anchored in the center of the port in the area between the Bastione della Dogana and the Molo Sanita. The cargo schifazzi stay at the quay in Ville Regina Elena, and up to the Porta Soriso. Coral fishing lutelli stay from the Porta Soriso up to the Bastione di San Francesco. The western roadstead known as the Cappuccini Sea is reserved for the gozzi and the long boats of the fish and coral fishermen and the schifazzi del Palazzo. It runs from the Bastione di San Francesco to the Cappuccini Church and Convent, in the Lazaretto Bay, near the islet of Sant'Antonio, quarantine, and haul-out boats stop. On the northern coast, the roadstead that stretches from the Torre di Ligni to the Castello di Terra serves as a small harbor for small boats, and as a shelter from the Sirocco and Libeccio gales for all kinds of vessels in transit. The harbor can also be accessed from the northeasterly sea via a navigable channel with a shallow draft. There are two major guilds linked to the sea. The Marina dei Pescatori, or Marina Piccola, uses a varca. They are all fishermen and live in two different quarters, the Casalicchio and the Quartier Palazzo. The Marina Grande uses a navi, are people of established experience, who are also recruited by foreign shipowners to guarantee the safety of their trade. The shipwright, or maestro marina, obtains the locks he needs to build a boat. To become a shipwright, one has to come from a family trade, watch and work in a shipyard, where the technique is orally transmitted from father to son. A very personal tool is the mezzo garbo, for drawing the ribs of the central body of the hull, hence the adjective aggabato, referring to a wood bent in the appropriate way. Wanting to indicate the worthiness of a craftsman, this saying is in use. Lu mastru aviun bedu ibu. The caulker collaborates with the shipwright by filling small cracks in the planking with hot pitch and tow. He also intervenes in the refitting and repair of damaged ships. The sailmaker makes and maintains the sail rigging of boats and mills under the stress of strong winds. Using cotton and hemp inside the magazzino, a small sail can be made. If it is larger, it is made under the walls of the Bastione dell'Impossibile. The schifazzaro Paolo Caruso sews his own sails. They often beg him to make them for other schifazzi. He decided to change his trade, becoming a sailmaker, assisted by Salvatore Caruso, who set up a workshop employing 15 women and an old bosun, and opened a naval supplies shop. He experimented successfully with the rope-making business. The Cannavaro, the Cadoro and the Funaio, starting from hemp fiber with archaic equipment, produce ropes of all kinds used in maritime, agricultural, construction, and animal traction transport. Their place of work is in Piazza Malta, in the direction of Via Vespri outside the railway, and in Via dei Funai. They use child labor. The rope factories belong to the Catalano, Pilati and Samartino families. The last rope makers are Maestro Rocco Orlando and Antonio Voltaggio. The painter takes care of the varnishing of the wood. The decorations ward off the evil eye and malevolent influences, provide divine protection, and increase the sense of security while sailing or fishing. The symbols are the eye, the hippocampus, the mermaid, the dragon, the star, the image of the Virgin, the saints and the monstrance. The blacksmith, Lou Ferraru, plays a key role in assembling wood, currently the only construction material, using nails forged one by one as well as making other iron products. In Via Portagrozia at the corner with Via Amiralio Stati, is the workshop of Giuseppe Marseca, a tinsmith by trade. He makes the cartedda a isolina out of galvanized sheet metal, steel shovels, and cafesai for storing oil. He supplies galvanized sheet metal lanterns for signaling and other materials. The shipyards build small and medium-sized boats, and do so in two areas. The Marina Piccola, near the Cappuccini convent, where smaller boats are built, and the Marina Grande, located in the innermost area of the port corresponding to Via 30 Gennaio and Piazza Malta, where larger boats are built. The shipwrights of the Marina Grande have a shipbuilder's license. The Consoli della Mistranza dei Naviganti, as well as the Consoli dell'Arte dei Falegnami, charge boat owners and carpenters an annual fee proportionate to the weight of the boat. With the advent of the engine and new construction materials, orders decreased and the number of shipyards dwindled. Of the many remain those of Baracco, Cinchera, D'Amico, Mancuso, Marcianti, Romeo, Stabile, Stampa. The ex voto tell the story of the time when the Trapanese navy sailed and offer the possibility of recognizing the various types of boats and the rigging used. Whoever went to sea and offered an ex voto did so on the occasion of an inauspicious event requesting divine intervention. The ex voto always depicts the moment just prior to the realization of grace by the saints shown above in the depiction. The shrine of the Madonna di Trapani has hosted many offerings from the faithful since 1749. A high mercantile movement of traffic boats therefore allows the economy of Trapani to increase its source of wealth. Due to the shallow waters, high-tonnage vessels use pontoons to have contact with the mainland. Maritime traffic is divided into two categories. Intra-kingdom traffic is carried out by tireless, illiterate sailors who know the coast, the shoals, the scattered reefs, the pitfalls of winds and currents, but not the trade. Traffic outside the kingdom is reserved for the largest cabotage vessels, also belonging to foreign shipowners. They call at the most important ports nationally, internationally and overseas. The gozzo, or varkutsa, is the traditional small fishing boat. Its belly shape is wide in the middle and sharp at the bow, and stern gives it great stability. It is armed with a short mast leaning forward. When possible, the mast is removed and placed on deck and the mast suspended on two forks, one at the bow and one at the stern. Its close proximity to the coast allows artisanal fishing with lines such as pulintinu and konzu, gill nets such as monofilo, tremalio, palangaro, and various tools such as karkoxiula, bardasuni, angamedu, ontratu, purposa, manutsa and fiercina. It is also a means of transport within the port. The longboat, known as the Varca Longa, is solid, elegant, fast and suitable for all sea conditions. It can be found in Trapani, Castellammare del Golfo, Favignana, Marettimo and Mazzara del Volo. It sails in waters not far from its home territory, but also in non-territorial waters. It has a lateen sail with a long mast and a short mast leaning forward. It is suitable for bluefish fishing with gill nets such as the tratta, the tremalio, the sciabica, the bottom trawl and the tartawan. Some VARCHE longha, armed with a lateen sail, still sail in Trapani waters, Paola, Orza, San Francesco di Paola, and Coccinella. Tuna boats make up the Vacarizzo. Pitch black, they are mostly bellied and have a square stern for better stability and to ensure a greater load. The Vasedi are the largest and most useful for hauling the large anchors of the rig out to sea. The Vasedu ai Levanti, that houses most of the crew during fishing operations. the vasedu ai ponenti, that serves as the closure of the fishing rectangle. The parascami, known as varcas, flat-bottomed and wide, are used to transport and place nets, anchors, cables and floats. The bastard, also known as the guardari boats. The venturiera, a two-pronged gozzo used for the transport of tuna fishermen, for connections and for guard operations. The musia, small, slender and fast boats useful a guardari, called according to their role. Bastarda, porta chiara, ai suari, ai cambia guardia, ai lufanali, musurieda, ai lusataresi, and musiara, ai luresi. The trailers are sturdy and long boats. The smallest, luvavaricchio, is a 5-meter long lance used for small movements between nets. The luteo minor, known as buzu or corallina, originated for coral fishing and was widespread and built both in Trapani and Marsala. It rigs a mast with a lateen sail. Having exhausted the coral banks, it is used in Trapani for traditional fishing, lu buzu sampetraru, or nasiolo fishes with the use of pots, while lu buzu barakatu uses traditional nets. In Marsala, it is used for fishing with the conzo. A buzu that still sails is the Santa Lucia, built in 1978 by master carpenter Francesco Mancuso. The luteo maggiore is only used in Trapani for long coral fishing campaigns in Tunisian territory, at TIPICHE, and for sponge fishing from the Sfacasari. It is also excellent for transport in the Mediterranean, intra and extra kingdom, and is armed with 2 lateen sail masts. The Sicilian lugger, called sacchi leva, in use in Lampedusa and Mazzara del Volo for sponge fishing and for trips to the rich fishing grounds, is armed with 2 masts and sails. The schifazzo was born from the creativity of Trapani's master mariners. A cargo boat, it makes cabotage according to its size, carrying various kinds of merchandise, and is used for sponge fishing. Its number of masts varies from 1 to 3 and it has a shallow draft. When at anchor, the rudder is removed and laid across the deck at the stern. In Trapani, according to counts from 1867, there is a real fleet, as many as 120, divided into masters, in which the owner is also captain, and non-masters owned by large shipowners. The version with only 1 mast goes by the name of small schifazzo, or schifazzedu. It is used for inshore fishing with tartayuni, siabish, and trat, but also for small cabotage for all kinds of goods. The large schifazzo, used for both intra and extra-kingdom traffic, carries all kinds of merchandise. It is also used in trawling, known as paranza, and in September in sponge fishing. The schifazzo ai salina is used to transport about 20 tons of salt per voyage into the harbor. It is equipped with a mast. The rudder can be raised to be able to navigate in shallow waters such as those of the salt pan channels. Due to its maneuverability, it can be driven by 1 person. It is used in the salt pans of Trapani and Marsala with identical navigation and cargo management techniques. In 1920, the SIES, which managed many salt pans in the Trapani area, in order to cut the costs of transporting the white gold, set up its own transport system, equipping itself with around 100 boats, including schifazzi and musia ai salina. Each of these is identifiable by means of a galvanized plate nailed on the jaw and bearing an identification number. The musiara ai salina is used for access to the inland basins and collection points, or for boarding large ships. In the inland salt pans, present just outside the walled city walls of Trapani, a pushing pole called a punituri is used to navigate the narrow canals together with the use of oars and help from land. With the advent of the motor, it lost its sail rig and was only used for towing. The documentary Illinois Cimitero degli Schifazzi testifies to man's disregard for part of Trapani's shipbuilding heritage. What remains are crumbling skeletons in a salt pan canal. The eastern area of Favignana is the quarrying site of the so-called cantuni, a light yellow, often off-white ashlar that is extremely malleable and resistant. The schifazzo ai cantuna makes it possible in 1 trip to load 900 to 1,000 of them by means of a chute built on the cliff and transport them to the port of Trapani. It is equipped with a mast and 2 long oars and has a crew of 2 to 3 men. When the loading is completed, the schifazzi let themselves be cast off just enough to raise their sails and head for the port of destination. Some Schifazzi come to load Cantuna in Favignana, La Bagiana, the Bella Libia. Others also serve to transport passengers, Illinois Guerrero, the San Francesco. On the other hand, the Schifazzi Igia and Niobe support the tuna fishery. The last Schifazzo I Cantuna, called Fiume Platino, was built in Trapani in 1965 by Maestro Nardo Baracco. The only Schifazzo that still sails is the largely renovated Mizza, which was originally called Santa Caterina. Another is the San Giacomo, built in 1879, now a museum within the Salt Pans Reserve. The Sicilian Bovo is a cargo vessel used for cabotage from the ports of Sicily to the entire Mediterranean. It has a shallow draft even when fully loaded. The mainsail is Latin. It is equipped with coarse lights fixed on the shrouds and in mounts on each edge. The Tartana from the 1800s is medium to large in size, with a lateen-sailed mast with a slender prow known as the violino. The sharp shape of the hull to cut through the waves distinguishes the cutter. In the Trapanese dialect it is called cottaro. It is characterized by a long hull, low edges and a single mast that can grip the wind very well. In the early 1900s, Trapani had as many as 30 cutters. The Ciabeco was the product of an era in which commercial navigation undermined by pirate or warlike offenses required vessels with special nautical characteristics. Around 1840, its slow abandonment began, mainly due to running costs. The schooner remains one of the most popular small and medium tonnage vessels appreciated by shipowners, because it can sail well into the wind, is fast and inexpensive. In the period from the end of the 19th century until 1953, it was the sailing vessel most used for off-royalty trading by Trapani sailors, who called it Violetta. Among the schooners operating in Trapani are the Giovanna Caruso and the Ciro, both owned by Trapani shipowner Paolo Caruso. Mario Casisa in his Sea-era Una Volta Trapani describes the cage schooner that has longer masts on which square sails are set. This is the Vexeca, called Vicasica, by the Navy. Schooner is the term used by the Trapanese Navy to identify the brigantine schooner. It is armed with 2 masts. There are many examples in the port of Trapani, with a capacity of 200 to 400 tons. The increase in sailing ship tonnage brought about by the expansion of trade and the expansion of sail areas suggested the use of a 3rd mast. Thus the Brigantino Apollo was born. It possessed a maneuverability considered essential for the Mediterranean routes, despite its size and equipment capable of tackling any type of sea. In the Italian register for the classification of ships of 1887, one finds the Brigantino Apollo Giulia, built in Trapani, in the year 1856. The Goletta Apollo also arms 3 masts. The Trapanese shipowner Gaetano Nicotra arms the Maria Stella, bought in Germany in 1920 and sunk in 1944 by a torpedo fired from a German submarine, while at anchor in San Benedetto del Tronto. The 3-masted timber with square sails, plus bowsprit, received its name in the official nomenclature of ships in 1872. If one of the 3 masts is rigged with square sails and 2 with auric sails, plus bowsprit, then the nomenclature gives it the name nave goletta. One example is the Antonio d'Ali armed by Giuseppe d'Ali e Figli, built in Chiavari in 1891. A 4-masted armed ship, built in the period between the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, no longer in wood but in iron or steel, is referred to as a nave Apollo, according to the 1942 nomenclature. An example is the Gabriele d'Ali armed by Senator Giuseppe d'Ali and Sons. The hope is to see someone who, in the years to come, will be able to give the right meaning to these stories, which are an expression of the protagonism of the people of Trapani. This can be done by reading all the memoirs written over the years, and delving into the subject by reading Professor Pietro Monteleone's volume entitled BARCHE TIPICHE TRAPANESI NELLA TRADIZIONE DEGLI ex VOTO. Perhaps this will be done.